When archaeologists unearth ancient shoes, the artifacts are usually the same size as the footwear we use today. However, during recent excavations in northern England, researchers were surprised to find several massive leather shoes that are much larger than usual, and they have no idea why they're so big. The supersized footwear is from a Roman-era fort called Magna, located along Hadrian's Wall, that marked the northwest boundary of the Roman Empire. Also known as Carveran, the fort was operational from 85 CE to 122 CE. Since May, archaeologists working at Magna have unearthed 8 massive leather shoes that each measure more than 11.8 inches long. The extra-large specimens now make up roughly a quarter of all the shoes found at the site so far. Researchers discovered the first huge shoe while exploring a defensive ditch where Roman soldiers were also known to dump their trash. That shoe's sole was 12.6 inches long. Archaeologists kept digging and found another 33 shoes of varying sizes, including some that appear to have been made for children. The soles are all made from thick sheets of cowhide leather that are held together by iron hobnails. The shoes have been preserved for nearly 2,000 years because of the low oxygen conditions of the soil in the region. Researchers don't know why some of the footwear at Magna is so large. They've also unearthed thousands of shoes at the nearby Roman fort of Vindelanda, but most of those were normal in size. Of the 3,704 measurable shoes discovered at Vindelanda, only 16, or about 0.4%, were longer than 11.8 inches. For comparison, 25% of the shoes found at Magna so far have been more than 11.8 inches long. The giant Magna shoes will probably shrink a little bit during the conservation process. But even if they lose 0.4 inches of length, which archaeologists say is standard, they'll still be gigantic. They assume it's something to do with the people living here having bigger feet and being potentially taller. Are the people living there from a specific region? Could that be why their shoes are so much larger? But at the moment, this is unusual. There might be other possible explanations. Maybe the massive shoes were worn by soldiers with swollen feet or other injuries that required them to wear medical dressings. Alternatively, perhaps the shoes were winter boots that were meant to be worn with several pairs of socks or some insulation. This theory is supported by a preserved letter that mentions the sending of socks and underpants to a soldier stationed there. Historians also know that archers from warmer areas lived at Magna, and it's safe to assume that these men would not have been accustomed to the cold climate of northern England. When people think about the Romans, they think about Italians. They sometimes forget just how broad the empire was and how far it stretched. Individuals from different parts of the world were likely living and working at Magna 2 millennia ago. To figure out who was wearing the large footwear, researchers plan to study the wear patterns and foot impressions left behind in the shoes. These insights could help them work backward to model the feet of the original wearers. They also plan to date pottery and other artifacts to better understand the site's timeline, as well as who may have lived there at various points in history. In the meantime, the shoes serve as a reminder that not every population was the same. That wide variations between the regiments and people who served along Hadrian's Wall could be cultural and physical.